We often spend half our lives preparing meticulously for retirement. We calculate every figure in our savings accounts down to the last detail, purchase health insurance plans, and consider building a small house in the suburbs or moving closer to our children and grandchildren. Society has programmed us to believe that the day we officially leave the workplace behind, handing back the employee badge and clearing out the desk, is the finish line of an exhausting marathon. Most people imagine that beyond that finish line lies a paradise of peace and freedom. But there is one brutal truth that no financial advisor or pre-retirement class ever tells us. It is the deafening silence of a Monday morning, when the outside world rushes headlong into its familiar rhythm, while you wake up at home, look around, and realize there is nowhere you are required to go, and no one who truly needs you to solve an urgent problem. The greatest fear of old age, it turns out, is not the lack of money or the decline of physical health. The most terrifying fear, the one that smolders and carries the most destructive psychological weight, is the haunting feeling that you have become useless. During the first few months, retirement often feels like an extended vacation. It resembles a honeymoon phase of freedom. You allow yourself to sleep in until 9 in the morning, leisurely brew a pot of tea, water a few orchids, and finally watch the films you once missed because deadlines consumed your life. There are long coffee conversations with old friends, and short trips taken without ever checking a calendar. But eventually, that honeymoon ends. Perhaps after 3 months, perhaps after 6, the glamorous mist surrounding freedom slowly fades, revealing an endless and terrifying void named time. When you have been accustomed to a busy cycle for 30 or 40 years, your mind and body have been shaped by pressure, responsibility, and recognition. You are used to waking up to a long list of tasks to complete, people to meet, and problems to untangle. Sudden idleness does not bring the sense of liberation you once dreamed of. Instead, it transforms into an invisible glass cage. You begin searching for things to do out of sheer desperation. You wipe down a cabinet that is already clean, fix a faucet that was never broken, and reorganize the wardrobe for the 5th time that week, all just to create the illusion that you are still busy, still producing some kind of value. This psychological torment is often very difficult to vocalize because it is accompanied by a profound sense of guilt. If you admit that you are suffering, those around you, and even you yourself, will immediately object. They will argue that you have a stable pension, your children are grown and successful, and you have a warm home to shelter you from the elements, so why can't you just enjoy life? Why do you keep making yourself miserable? This exact lack of empathy from conventional perspectives only pushes those who have just entered retirement deeper into isolation. They swallow their feelings of emptiness. They sit in silence for hours by the window, watching the rushed streams of traffic pass by, feeling like forgotten spectators abandoned at the edge of life's stage. When you are no longer working, the phone that used to ring dozens of times a day suddenly falls silent. You realize a sharp truth: relationships that once seemed incredibly close turn out to be mere connections maintained by work and mutual benefits. Stripped of the launching pad of titles and positions, you feel as though your ego has been taken away. The life identity you painstakingly built over decades suddenly loses its validity. And then, that emptiness gradually seeps into your relationships with your most loved ones. You begin waiting for your children's calls like a lifeline to salvage a lingering sense of connection. You want to participate in caring for your grandchildren and offer your opinions on family decisions, big and small, purely to prove that your voice still carries weight and your presence is still needed. But your children are currently in the most vibrant and busy stage of their own lives, the very age you once experienced yourself, back when you, too, did not have enough time for your own parents. Their rushed responses over the phone, such as "I'm in a meeting, I'll call you back tonight," though bearing no ill intent, act like needles piercing your already sensitive and fractured psyche. You begin to withdraw, terrified of becoming a burden, and afraid of having to admit that the younger generation's world is operating perfectly fine without your intervention. The shadow of this torment continues to grow, turning a fully equipped, comfortable home into an isolated oasis where the elderly lock themselves within the thought that their time now is nothing more than days spent waiting for the end. However, this agonizing emptiness is not a life sentence for your twilight years, and that feeling of uselessness is absolutely not the final truth about your human worth. The torments you are enduring are actually just a psychological alarm bell, a normal physiological pain of shedding your old skin, signaling that it is time for us to completely shatter and redefine the concept of being useful in a new chapter of life. To escape this swamp of torment, the first and most critical step is to bravely confront a core psychological truth. For so many years, we have measured our own worth using an incredibly cruel metric of modern society, a metric named productivity. Since we were children, we were taught to be useful through our grades in school. As adults, that usefulness is converted into job titles, salaries, the number of completed projects, and the ability to fully provide for our families financially. We have grown accustomed to viewing ourselves as non-stop production machines, and when that machine stops churning out tangible products, we automatically label it as scrap. But my dear friend, human beings are not machines, and the value of a life has never been, and will never be, solely based on how much money one can make or how many problems one can solve. Leaving the labor market does not mean you are eliminated from the flow of life. It merely means you are shifting into a different frame of reference, where usefulness takes on a completely new, quieter, and much more profound form. Try to look back at the concept of usefulness through a wider lens. An ancient tree standing silently in a village courtyard does not produce sweet fruit every season, nor can it be sold for money like short-term cash crops, but its existence provides shade on sweltering summer afternoons, a refuge for wild birds, and stands as a symbol of peace and steadfastness for the entire space. Your retirement age is exactly the phase where you transform into such an ancient tree. Your usefulness now no longer lies in the act of doing, but in the state of being present. The children in your family may not need you to roll up your sleeves to solve their financial equations for them, but they desperately need a peaceful haven to return to after the storms and pressures of the outside world. They need to see their parents living an unhurried, healthy, and joyful life. When you take good care of your own mental and physical health, when you do not let yourself fall into melancholy or psychological dependence, that is already a priceless gift, the greatest and most practical contribution you can offer your descendants. To achieve this, we need to learn how to restructure our time, not with dense to-do lists, but with soul-nourishing intentions. Do not try to fill a free day by forcing yourself to do meaningless chores just to create the illusion of busyness. Instead, allow yourself to enjoy the greatest privilege of your twilight years, the right to slow down and observe the world. You can spend an entire morning just sitting and watching raindrops fall past the window pane, without having to worry that flooded streets or traffic jams will make you late for clocking in. You can personally prepare an elaborate meal, taking your time to chop each sprig of vegetable, marinate each slice of meat, transforming cooking from a rushed obligation after work into a highly artistic, meditative ritual. Learn how to converse with yourself, listening to the rhythms of the body that you once neglected during the youthful years of relentless dedication. Befriending yourself, though seemingly simple, is actually the hardest skill we must learn from scratch once the noise of work no longer drowns everything out. Furthermore, this is the golden time for you to awaken other versions of yourself that have been buried under the thick dust of responsibility. Cast your mind back. Before becoming a hard-working mother, a breadwinning father, or a diligent boss, who were you? What unfinished dreams did you once harbor? Perhaps in your youth you loved to paint, but had to set aside your brushes due to the financial burdens of survival. Maybe you once dreamed of learning to play an instrument, writing a memoir with your own hands, or simply tilling the soil to grow a balcony garden full of brilliantly blooming roses. Now, there are absolutely no barriers forbidding you from pursuing those pure passions. Do not worry about whether these hobbies generate achievements or money. Their value lies in the joy blossoming in your eyes, and the delicate vibration of your heart when you get to do what you truly love. Every stroke you paint, every musical note you play, no matter how clumsy, is silently healing your psychological fractures, filling the invisible voids, and reaffirming the beautiful, unique existence of yourself. And finally, redefining usefulness also encompasses the reestablishment of your social network. Do not merely pace within the four walls of your home waiting for your children's attention. Proactively step outside and seek out communities that share common interests and value systems. That could be a poetry club, an association of photography lovers, a local volunteer group, or simply old friends gathering for morning exercises in the park. When you immerse yourself in a collective of your peers, people who are experiencing the exact same psychological shifts as you will realize that you are by no means alone. In those communities, your rich life experiences and the stories of ups and downs you have traversed suddenly become precious lessons and tremendous sources of encouragement for others. Once again, you find yourself cherished, listened to, and realizing that genuine human connection is the single most valuable currency in the remaining portion of your life. The journey of transformation from fear and emptiness to peaceful acceptance, however, is never a smooth road, and sometimes the greatest obstacles do not come from external loneliness, but lurk deep within psychological blind spots we have never dared to confront. Those psychological blind spots we have never dared to confront, in reality, bear the name of a barren and stubborn companion, the ego. For the majority of our lives, our ego has been shaped and nourished by external validation. It grows through the praise of our superiors, the respect of our colleagues, and the proud gazes of our relatives when looking at the material achievements we have built. That ego is like a shining suit of armor we don every morning before stepping onto the battlefield of life. That armor protected us from wounds, helping us fight, survive, and assert our position. But now, with the battle far behind us, as we safely return to our small homes, that armor suddenly becomes heavy and suffocating to the point of breathlessness. The feeling of uselessness, emptiness, and torment that besieges us daily is, in essence, the agonizing scream of the ego when it is starved, when it is no longer hailed or needed by the outside world. The act of personally unfastening that armor, of accepting that one is no longer an important figure in the eyes of society, demands an immense amount of courage. It is akin to stripping away a familiar glamorous shell to confront the bare, fragile, and deeply unsteady soul of your own self. That unsteadiness is gouged even deeper when we are forced to face another cruel truth of time, the deterioration of the physical machine. In idleness, people tend to listen to their bodies more, and that is precisely when we distinctly notice the aching in our knees when the weather turns, the need to squint just to read a text message from our children, or a memory that occasionally goes on strike for no reason at all. The psychology of fearing one's own uselessness often stems from a silent resentment toward our very own aging bodies. We are angry because we no longer have the strength to carry 2 fully packed grocery bags from the supermarket to our homes, angry because we must rely on others for trivial tasks we once could have done with our eyes closed. But my friend, instead of spurning and denying it, this is the time we need to practice one of the most sacred rituals of a human life, profound forgiveness and gratitude directed at ourselves. Look at your wrinkled hands, spotted with age. Those hands are not at all useless. They are historical witnesses that have cradled growing children, nurtured a home through countless stormy seasons, and labored to the point of bleeding to trade for full, warm meals. This body has excellently fulfilled its historical mission, and the fact that it needs to rest, needs to slow down, is a privilege from the Creator, not a punishment. Once you have learned how to be tolerant with the twilight of your physical self, you will touch upon a completely new echelon of awareness regarding the value of existence. If, during the first half of your life, your definition of usefulness was always tied to serving others, serving the company, serving society, serving the family, then now, your greatest mission is to become useful to your own soul. You owe the outside world not a single report or productivity quota more. You owe no one an explanation for how you utilize your time. Your sole responsibility at this moment is to heal the chronic psychological wounds left by your toiling youth, to soothe the inner child who once had to cry in secret due to unnamed pressures. You become genuinely useful when you allow yourself to sit quietly on the porch, personally brew a pot of lotus tea, open a book that has been sitting on the shelf for 20 years without you ever having the time to read it, and let your mind drift freely. The act of building a rich, tranquil inner world that does not depend on external circumstances is indeed your greatest achievement, one that no job title or salary can ever match. Moreover, in the boundless silence of retirement, you will discover the radiant beauty of invisibility. In a society where everyone craves attention, seeks to express themselves, and rushes forward to snatch the spotlight, being permitted to step back and act as an anonymous spectator is a wildly luxurious freedom. You no longer have to strain yourself to please anyone, nor do you have to paste fake, diplomatic smiles on your lips, nor fear the judgmental gaze of the world. You can wear the most shabby yet comfortable clothes to go for a walk, and you can stop for an entire hour just to watch a colony of ants carrying food or a yellow leaf falling onto the surface of a lake. Idleness at this point is no longer a terrifying void to run from, but has metamorphosed into a pristine white canvas, where you hold the freedom to paint any hue you desire, even if it is the most plainly faded shade of the ordinary. And do you know, when you truly find peace within that seemingly useless idleness, you are leaving behind a priceless spiritual legacy for the generations to come. Your children, young people who are currently struggling in the vortex of earning a living, will look at you as a living testament that old age is not a somber sentence, and ending a career is not the final period on a human's worth. By living a leisurely, unconstrained, and intermittent retirement, you are teaching them the greatest lesson on the art of letting go. They will no longer see a grumpy, sorrowful elder who always clings to the glory of the past. Instead, they will see a steadfast, quiet mountain radiating the energy of unconditional serenity. Your peace is the sturdiest psychological anchor, helping them feel secure as they rush out there to fight their battles without having to turn their heads back in worry or pity. The journey from fear to peace has never been easy, but it is an inevitable path for us to truly come home after a very long trip. When the ego has been distilled, when time is no longer an enemy but becomes a soulmate, you will realize that nothing in this world is useless, not even stillness. Just as a symphony always needs silent notes to forge the depth of emotion, a human life also needs the empty years of retirement so we can truly hear the echo of our own souls. So, when you wake up tomorrow morning and see a long day with no schedule waiting ahead, will you be ready to smile, throw open the window, and embrace that uselessness as a breathtakingly beautiful privilege that the universe has gifted exclusively to you?